It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the SUNY Oneonta Associate Head Track and Field Coach, Coach Mitchel Couch. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college track and field?
Yeah, it was kind of by chance. My last year at SUNY Cortland, I was a transfer student who came in, so I was around for a fifth year, finishing up my degree. So I finished my athletic college career in 2017. In 2018, I was finishing up my degree and ended up doing an internship coaching for the SUNY Cortland team, and just really fell in love with it. Really like the idea of paying the sport forward and trying to help out student athletes and whatever their goals were. So that's just kind of how I fell into coaching. But yeah.
Of course, what was your experience like going to Cortland to compete in track as an athlete?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, where you talk to a lot of Cortland people, like it's very athletic heavy. And so that program has been around for a while and has a lot of prestige, especially within the Northeast. So it was great putting on that Cortland uniform. Um, and then just rolling, and also I transferred with a decent amount of friends too. So that was great that we were still with having the same uniform on when we transferred from SUNY Delhi.
While at Cortland, what was it like getting to compete in track and field, and what was your specialty at Cortland?
Yeah, so I was a thrower. Great experience. Had a decent sized group. We were around 10 men and women. Um, and my specialty coming out of high school was the discus. 6'6", 300 pounds. So I'm a big guy. Learned how to sling a disc, and then just kind of fell in love with weight and hammer when I was at SUNY Delhi. Just they were just like, here's this 35-pound weight, go throw it. And I'm just like, all right, cool. So I really fell in love with that, and then hammer kind of became my bread and butter, and that's one I was fortunate enough to win national runner-up in 2017.
Of course, what was that like getting to compete as a thrower at Cortland?
It was good. It was really nice, especially within the competition in that area. I mean, the SUNYAC conference is one of the more competitive ones within D3, within the nation. So, um, it was great competition. SUNY Brockport, they had a thrower at the time, John Rogers, and it was just iron and sharpen iron whenever we saw each other. It was just us going out and trying to put each other in the dirt, which was always a fun competition, but kept it friendly.
Of course, what was that feeling like getting to put on that Cortland track and field jersey?
It was a lot of history behind it, which was nice. The moment I ended up the first outdoor meet my junior year, I ended up breaking the hammer throw record there. And got a text from the original record holder. So it was really nice knowing that um, the com track and field community there was still keeping tabs on like how people were doing and the competition level and just kind of what was going on there. So it was really nice feeling supported and being able to compete for a historic team.
How was that experience like in 2017 getting to go to the NCAA championship as a hammer thrower?
It was a lot of fun. But it was a long time coming. You know, I had qualified for the NCAA championships two times before, one time for indoor, and then the other time the past year for hammer and outdoor, and it kind of just pooped my pants. It just did not have a great meet at all at either one. So it was a really good learning experience and seeing everything kind of come to fruition as far as like the mindfulness stuff that I practice as an athlete and the time like the weight room, time in the circle, just It was a great accumulation. It was great having like my family there, which they rarely came to meet. So it was pretty cool for them to be like, oh yeah, like I watched my son throw a 16-pound ball pretty far. So
Besides,
yeah, it was a really good experience.
obviously the NCAA championship, what were some of your accomplishments in track and field?
Yeah, so I think one of the cooler experiences that I had was competing in Albuquerque, New Mexico, when I was at SUNY High, when they were still at junior college athletics wise. Um, and that was for the JUCO National Championships for indoor because they combined D1 and D3. So a lot of the D1 JUCO schools were down south. So that was really cool, and also because that facility hosts a lot of really far throws. And just the history going to that meet, and still like that was my PR my sophomore year was there, which was a pretty cool experience. Was able to be a junior college All-American. And then having a few records was pretty nice as well. Um, I have the weight throw record at Delhi. I still have the weight throw record at Cortland. My Cortland hammer throw record got broken. Um, Being SUNYAC field athlete a year, which was pretty nice. My senior year, my first senior year, when was national runner up, was pretty nice, and our team ended up finishing, I believe, fifth. Um, that year, and it was great to kind of be able to connect with those guys, and those are the guys I'm still keeping in touch with to this day.
Of course, how does that feel to still know that you still hold some of the records at Cortland?
It's pretty nice, but I'm waiting for them to get broken. It was pretty cool. I was actually coaching at Oneonta at the time that my hammer throw record was broken. So it was just like hey, like congratulations, because my fifth year at Cortland, I was also talking to the recruit that came in and broke my record. So it was cool to kind of just see it come kind of full circle there, where it was just like, okay, like I recruited this guy to go to Cortland. He broke the record. Like it's full circle. And, yeah, but they got a pretty good freshman right now who I'm expecting to beat it in some time. So we'll see what happens.
Of course, what was that transition like for you as an athlete to go from being an athlete to now getting into coaching and going to one O?
Yeah, so at Oneonta, it's been pretty nice. It was a bit of a rough adjustment. I was commuting a lot my first year. Um, and as far as just seeing all the other aspects, like I kind of already saw it my fifth year at Cortland. But just seeing what the other side of the athletic sphere is like, where it's like, oh, it's not just practice, it's also like all the paperwork and all the recruiting that goes into like what makes a competitive team a competitive team.
How was that feeling like getting to come to Oneonta to become the throwers coach?
It was really nice. I was kind of frantically applying to jobs right out of college. I'm just like, okay, well, this is kind of like the perfect fit, because I'm actually from like the Oneonta area originally. So it was nice being here, already kind of knowing the athletic administration. Um, and knowing most of the athletes there as well, either like I competed against them when they were like freshmen, um, or just knowing them from coaching against them when I was at Cortland. So knowing that going into it being like, okay, these are the technical adjustments we need to make when I first come in, and then taking them to be at that level. So that was kind of the same thing I had with Noberto, who was one of my student athletes and my first All-American. So uh, that was very insightful as far as being like, okay, I can observe them from a distance for like a year and then just go in and be like, okay, like I already know what's up. So it was a good transition.
Of course, as you talked about having those freshmen that were freshmen whenever you were a senior to now seniors, what has that been like? Obviously, seeing those seniors that were freshmen when you were competing.
Yeah, it was. weird. Being like, okay, like I initially wanted to like beat them, like, and then coming in as their coach, being like, okay, how can I make you better? It was a little bit of a weird transition. But as far as that group is gone. This is my year. I just finished up my 5th year at Oneonta, and so it was great seeing that group develop. Griffin, he was really developing throughout like his indoor season, and ended up finishing his indoor season with a big PR, and then like it was like COVID like just struck his senior year, and then he wasn't able to see what happened in like the outdoor season, but it was really cool. I enjoyed it a lot.
What does a typical track and field meet look like at SUNY Oneonta?
So for us, we only have an outdoor facility. Um, but we have a pretty good setup. Nice little 8-lane track. Pits on the infield for horizontals and verticals, and then the throws is a bit of a hike. So it's probably about a quarter mile, but Oneonta is called City of the Hills, and that's for a reason. So our throws area is on top of a hill. So we always have like vans from other coaches that volunteer to help work those meets, transport people up and down. But as far as our throws area goes, it's fantastic. It's hard pressed to find any other throws facility that's better than ours in New York State. I can name a few, but there's not a lot, which is nice.
Of course, how is that like obviously getting to coach the throwers that you were as you were once a thrower in college?
It's nice that I can put myself in their shoes. But it's also frustrating where it's just like I can't do this for you, you know. Where it's I can own as a coach, I can only, you know, try covering the potholes for them along their college journey as they drive down that road. But if they still want to drive over the potholes, they're still going to drive over the potholes. So at the end of the day, for me, it's a lot of fun. I like try and putting each thrower's puzzle pieces together and kind of figuring out what makes them tick technically. And that's one of the biggest enjoyments of coaching for me is having that personal relationship with them, seeing them develop not only as a thrower but as a person. Um, yeah.
Of course, what does a typical throws meet look like for those throwers at Oneonta?
So whenever we go out to other venues and stuff like that, um, it's for us where we go, we're one of the more dominant throws groups. Like for our conference champions, this championship this past year, we scored 50% of our team points. And like I said, we're in one of the more competitive conferences within D3. So, with the places that we go, we're normally one of the more competitive groups, which is nice. We just had a junior qualify for the NCAA championships. She's school record holder with shot put. We had one guy who was 40th in the nation in hammer throw for D3. And we got another young lady who's second all time in shot put, and it's great to kind of see that group develop. But we also have a really large group, so everyone we have Oneonta jersey in every single flight. We have a lot in the top flight, so it's really great being like, okay, like I'm busy at a track meet. That's not a bad problem to have. It's a lot because the throws is the event that always takes forever, but it's just nice where you have that larger group pushing each other, especially at a competition event.
What is that like as a throwing coach, getting to coach those different disciplines like shot put, javel, and hammer throwing?
It's a headache, um, but it's a good headache. I mean, for me, like my bread and butter was hammer weight, so I'm obviously more inclined for that. But it's just as a coach, learning your events and understanding them. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about track and field is that you have all different types of athletes within the same sport. Um, so for me, it's just learning, okay, what general body types fit for each event. Like I'm not going to be having a 300-pound guy throwing the javelin, because chances are he's going to blow out his knee if he has a full approach going into that block leg. I'm more looking for like a triple jumper or a long jumper, or because in New York State, the high school doesn't sponsor javelin. And hammer. So I'm always trying to make javelin throwers at the college level, and we do it pretty well. We got a guy throwing low 50s right now, and this is his so. But for the other disciplines such as shot put, discus, hammer, and weight, it's more so for the practices and stuff like that, trying to find stuff that gears it to them and how we can have our practices be conducive to them throwing far, and what's going to be working best for them, and how our practices line up.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against each week?
So the Cortland, so we see them a lot, like I was talking about. But we also see Utica a lot. They're about an hour north of us. We're basically, if you drop a pin right in the middle of the map of New York State, that's where Oneonta is. So Utica, about an hour north of us. And then one of the things that is nice about college track and fields is that like there's divisions as far as you paying people to go to college or giving them an athletic scholarship. But wherever you go, legit's legit. So we compete against D2 schools, so we'll compete against like Lemoyne. We'll sometimes compete against D1 schools, so we'll see like Cornell a lot. So when I was a college athlete, like I had the opportunity to compete against Rudy Winkler, and always kicked my butt. But it was always great like watching him, and like he's the U.S. record holder now. So the guy obviously knows what he's doing. It was great watching him and like being like, okay, what can I kind of steal from him and his coach, and those type of technical sessions that they were having. Yeah.
Of course, what is that like, obviously, getting to coach against some of those SUNY schools that you played against as an athlete, but what is that also like getting to coach against those different schools that aren't SUNY?
Yeah, so for coaching against the ones that are in the SUNY system, it's always nice because I get to see those familiar faces. So the throws coach, the head coach at SUNY Brockport, Ed, he does a great job with his throwers. And then I have a former teammate that's now coaching at SUNY Cortland. So it's good seeing those guys a lot. But at the end of the day, like I'm always trying to beat them. And so it's nice seeing those familiar faces, but it's also like, okay, like I have this working relationship with them, and it's trying to keep things competitive, and like track and field is really nice where everyone pretty much gets along with everyone. But one of the things that I think is leading to success and development of success with our group is just the reminder of the competition aspect. Where it's, yes, you can still be friendly with these people, but at the end of the day, like it's going out and you're trying to compete against them and trying to compete against yourself, which is one of the nice things about track and field, kind of being like team oriented, but also individually oriented.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've helped to build for the track and field program?
Yeah. I'm always an advocate of trying to cheer everyone else on, and trying to make it more cohesive. It's always tough with track and field just because you kind of have it split up in three groups where you have like the throwers, you have the distance runners, you have the sprints, jumps. But whenever I can, it's tough because throws is always like up on a mountain, like at our place, or further away from the track. But I'm always trying to like get the throwers like over to the track and being like, hey, like go cheer on your teammates during like the 10K or whatever race is going on. And then vice versa for the rest of the team, and just try creating more of a cohesive unit where normally you'll see track and field teams be more fractional, where they're more split up and stuff like that.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to compete in track and field, and in particularly in the discipline of throwing?
Yeah, so for us, being D3 program, also trying to fill like roster spots, we kind of do shotgun recruiting tactic where it's like, hey, like we're going to be contacting everyone that meets these standards. And then from there, it's okay, do we get communicated with from these student athletes? And then for us, it's how can we then go out and contact student athletes? So during the cross country season, like I'll go to meets, but then I'll also go to like our competition meets. But then I'll also go to like high school meets. Oh, I can try making that first contact with either seniors that still kind of don't know what they're doing in the fall, or also juniors and try and establish that initial point of contact. So then specifically for the throwers, I'll try getting a hold of juniors as far as in-person contacts in the indoor season around like Christmas break, just because that's when we're available, because we don't have people on campus. And then after that kind of just goes back into like coaching time and not recruiting time, where you're still trying to maintain those contacts with the people that you made during that indoor season, the winter break time. And then after that, it's sectionals and like state quals and the state meet where you're going out trying to make as many points of contact, or throughout the year if there's an off like Tuesday meet, trying to go to meets and make contacts with kids. So it's a lot of traveling. But as far as after the initial point of contact, it's okay, how can we continue this communication? So try doing it 2 weeks to a month as far as points of contact with each student athlete. And then after that, it's okay, how can we get you on campus? How can we show you around? Because one of the nice things about Oneonta campus is it's really nice, beautiful. It's nestled right on the top of one of the hills, looking down to like the valley of Oneonta, so it's pretty scenic. And then after that, it's hey, if you're really interested in, say, they're a 4 or 5 star recruit for us, how can we have you on campus, do an overnight for an official visit? And then from there, it's after we're looking to have however many roster spots that year. Where are we at filling it? And then from then on, it's okay, like here's our timeline. How can we help you moving forward? Make sure that Oneonta is the right place for you. But for me, I'm more of a soft pitch guy, where it's at the end of the day, like if you're a talented young athlete, if we're looking at you, right? And if Oneonta is not the right place for you, the Northeast is frankly oversaturated with colleges. So you have a lot of choices to choose from. But if you go to Oneonta, you know you're going to be getting a coach that cares about you, cares about developing you, has a program that's in a really strong conference, and a program in itself, like I was talking about with Cortland, that also has a lot of history with throws. Like we've had national champion recent past with hammer throw, multiple time All-Americans within the throwing event. So more recent history, but that's something that I'm always trying to push to our prospective student athletes.
Of course, as a throwing coach, what is some of the things that you look at in those prospective student athletes that are throwers?
Um, well, one of the things that I've always heard as a recruiter and coach is that you can't teach height. So I'm always looking for size. And then also, is it like healthy size, right? So is someone like 6 feet tall plus for male or female? Or what is their numbers in like the weight room? How do they look via film? Like, is it like prestigious, immaculate form, or is it something that we really need to clean up? Because if I have someone who is having really, really good technical sessions, or someone who is a very strong technical thrower, that as a recruit, and they're still looking at us, which frankly sometimes they're not, because they're trying to get D1 money, and they look like a beanpole, then I'm just like, okay, like it's easier to coach someone in the weight room than it is the circle, because it's easier to put on mass and get that strength. So for me, I'm really looking at size, whether they're proficient in the circle, and then weight room is third on my hit parade, and obviously grades. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to college to be a student athlete, especially on the Division III level. Um, and so it's just like, okay, do we have the right fit for you, or are you coming to college to be an athlete student, not a student athlete? Because that can be a really big red flag.
Of course, what is that like? Obviously, seeing them fall in love with the campus of Oni.
So it's nice where you're kind of just taking them through the tour sometimes. So sometimes if they're a better student athlete, or coming in prospective student athlete, then it's pretty cool to see them be like, oh, this is pretty nice. Oh, this is pretty nice. Oh, you guys have this major. Oh, that's awesome. Which normally they do it before, or they see like our throws area, which is something I always try saving for last. Though it's a bit of a hike, it's really nice because it's on top of campus. And it gets like a better view down to the valley, so it's a little icing on the cake there. But normally, if they're at that point, and then they immediately contact me after their tour. It's just like, okay, like this is the right point. Where it's just like, okay, like now I could be like, hey, like where are you at with your college search? And normally they'll be like, hey, can we get a few days? But um, if they're at that point, then normally they'll commit. If not, it's okay. Like I said, there's a lot of options to choose from, and they're a talented athlete. As long as they're having a good 4 year experience, then it's not the end of the world.
As a coach, what is it like getting to see those freshmen put on that red jersey for the first time versus your seniors putting it on for the last time?
Um, First time, it's always like, okay, like how can they develop? Hopefully they don't get absolutely terrified in the circle of this being their first college meet. Because normally I'll put them in as either their high school marks or as no distance, because they've never thrown that event. And normally what'll happen is they put too much pressure on themselves, where it's just like, okay, like this is like my first college meet, like I gotta throw this mark, and it's just like, no, just focus on what we've been talking about during practice. And um, so normally that's the typical first uniform experience. And then for the last one, it's always bittersweet, right? Where it's just like, okay, like I'm really happy to see this person develop and leave and hopefully do what they're passionate about, as far as like a degree path, but they're going to be missed. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I just graduated my first recruiting class, which was very, very bittersweet, but it was nice because they're going to go on, they're going to do amazing things because they're a bunch of great eggs.
Of course, as a coach, what is it like seeing those female throwers getting to compete against those male throwers?
Yeah, I mean it's always kind of funny where it's just like, okay, well, I mean you can beat a lot of the male throwers sometimes. Um, but at the end of the day, it's competition's competition, and it's always nice to have the kind of difference in weight with I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but so the women for the hammer and the shot put throw a 4K. The men throw a 16 pounder, and then for discus, it's a 2K and a 1K, for the men and women. And then javelin, it's 800 and 600. So it makes competitions pretty comparable as far as like how far people are throwing, which is really nice, especially during like practices when people start maybe jawing at each other or something like that to get each other going, which is pretty funny. The guys like to do that a lot. But it's always good to see a competitive environment thrive, because at the end of like I was talking to you about before, as far as the competition I had with the fourth throw, or iron sharpens iron. So if people are pushing each other, trying to make themselves be uncomfortable as far as like a training parameter within practice or competition area, and they're not feeling crazy uncomfortable, then I'm all for it.
Of course, as a coach, what is it like seeing those athletes after collegiately go on and competing professionally and representing Team USA and future being an Olympian?
Well, I haven't had anyone do that yet, but from what I can speak of, as far as one of my friends, Jack Flood, who is at Cortland, who I was competing with, and we ended up transferring from Delhi to, well, I followed him to Delhi, transferred a semester behind him, but um, it was really cool to see him do that and put a lot of naysayers down as far as he's a D3 athlete going to compete at the world and national level. That was pretty cool, and also to see like someone I was competing against as far as like Rudy Winkler to go set the U.S. record and then go on to now be world number one ranked for that's always really, really cool. As far as my athletes go right now, I don't have anyone at that level, but I do have some people that definitely want to get into coaching afterwards, and it's kind of cool to see that I kind of had that influence on them to be like, okay, like this is something that I want to do.
What are some of your future plans moving forward
Me personally for the team, or well, me personally or for the team.
for the team?
For the team, I always just want to try growing as far as not just marks, obviously, and trying to take down some records, um, but also as far as like the culture. Making sure that we have a very cohesive unit. When I first came in, it was really tough because the athletes that I was inheriting had basically four different throws coaches for 4 years. So that was really, really rough. And that's something that I always keep in the back of my mind as far as, hey, like I want to make sure that, especially on the D3 level, making sure that they have a really good 4 years, right? Where they are trying to have not just a competitive experience, but also being respected and making sure that they respect each other.
What advice would you give those collegiate athletes that are entering their first year as a freshman?
Um, don't get caught in the freshman trap of the college experience. For me personally, when I went to SUNY Delhi, I ended up um, doing a lot of that stuff. So my first year of college, I ended up getting a 171, just because of bad life choices I made and bad stuff I was doing. And then it was like, okay, well, now I need to turn this around if I want to stay in college. And so for me, I'm always trying to emphasize like, what are your goals? What do you want your college experience to be? And they might think that 4 years is a really long time, but in the grand scheme of things for training and trying to compete at a high level, whether it's nationally or world, it's not a lot of time to develop your skills to really compete at whatever level you want to compete at. So it's always trying to make sure that you're holding them to a higher standard than sometimes they might hold themselves.
What advice would you give those athletes that are seniors looking to go compete nationally after collegiately?
Um, Make sure you got a flexible job, because you got to be top three if you want to try getting some money, for the most part. I think my buddy Jack does a really good job of it where I think he finished ninth or eighth at USA's Outdoor last year for the deck. And um, he's obviously not one of the top three, but he tries doing a really good job as far as like promoting himself and promoting his brand. So making sure that you have a source of income, either that or some other means, because track and field is not really a sport that pays well, unless you are in that top three and you get a lot of corporate sponsors. So um, find a flexible job. If you're passionate about what you do, make sure you're doing it to the best of your ability. But for me, I wasn't close enough to that borderline level where like I tried competing for like a year when I was doing the coaching aspect at Cortland. I still PR'd and hammer, which was nice, but I was still 11 meters away from being something relevant as far as like the world stage or the US stage at least, and going to US trials. So um, for someone that's looking to do that as far as pushing themselves, flexible job, or live at your parents' house and train hard, so you don't have to be living there for too long.
What advice would you give those collegiate athletes that are looking to get into coaching after their collegiate career?
It's really rewarding, but you got to make sure you're in the mindset where if say you're a high level athlete who's competing, making sure that you are not projecting on them what you do. So everyone has their own journey, everyone has their own life experiences, so they might not be viewing things the same way that you do. So for a new coach coming in, making sure that you're firm but fair is a very important thing that I learned from Steve Patrick at Cortland. And making sure that you are always open to receiving criticism from your athletes as long as it's a respectful way. Because that's one of the things that's one of the ways that I learned a lot. So like I came in having like a certain way of doing things, and I was very, very firm my first year. Like we were doing like 6 a.m. lifts, like I was going crazy, like drill sergeant. Um, and that kind of I think broke some people as far as them just like breaking down or not having as quality practices as they should. So making sure you are firm but fair, and making sure that you're always welcoming feedback, not really closing yourself off like I did my first year. Like they still had a good year, but I know it could have been a lot better if I didn't take those certain routes. So new throws coach, I definitely recommend that.
Of course, what advice would you give those throwing coaches out there looking to help those throwers in the collegiate level?
Um, Always revisit technical information. I think that's a huge bit. Like for me, I'm always on the mindset of needing to grow as far as um, my knowledge of the sport. Like for me, I always feel like my weakest event is javelin to coach. Um, and so like I'm always trying to like grow that as far as like information rabbit hole goes. But also talking about like um, how you can grow your knowledge about your most favorite event. Like for me, it's hammer. I love coaching hammer. I think it's one of the hardest events in track and field. So for me, like I ended up doing a master's hammer certification through the coaches association through the track and field. So I was able to chat with Derek Yush at Alabama. Almost every other week or something like that, and we just go over film, talk about how like I can get my group better, how I can learn from him. And that's one of the practical kind of impractical ways you can go about learning it, and always trying to find like a mentor and learning from other coaches.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find the program at on social media along with you at?
You can find me at Coach Couch Throws. I know it's a tongue twister. And then you can find our track and field program at Oneonta underscore XCTF. And that both of those are Instagram handles, and that's our main mode of social media.
Thank you again, Coach Mitchel Couch, for your interview, and best of luck at your future with SUNY Oneonta as the associate head track and field coach as a throwing coach.
Appreciate it.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Mitchel Couch, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.